What's up, coaches? Thank you for tuning in to Keep Your Pads Down. This is episode number 66, our fourth edition of our what we're calling Inside Drill, where I fly without a guest and we just talk, really just get into talking ball. There's not a whole lot of fluff involved. We just get right down to the nuts and bolts of some defensive line play. And today we're talking about a really simple concept. This is just a simple alignment that we've been doing for the last few years. We started doing it here at where I'm at now at Pleasant Grove, but we had done it in years past at my previous stops, and had a lot of success with it. And this is a way to get after the quarterback, particularly in passing situations, without having to change up personnel or having to send pressure. You can it's an alignment that can be done with the guys out on the field, especially if you're in a 4-down front. Now, if you're a 3-down front, and you're trying to get to a 4-down or something like that, this could be a little bit different. But what I'm really going to be talking about today is an alignment out of a 4-down front. We do base out of 3-down, but we will get into a 4-down front, and this is when we'll use that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What I'm talking about today is called 33 alignment. That's what I'm going to be referring to it as. 33 alignment is very, very simple. Here's the concept. What we do is when it's an obvious passing situation, and obviously this is dictated by our game plan for that week, what we see out of our opponent. But what we'll do is we'll take our defensive ends and we'll flip them with our nose tackle and our defensive tackle, our 3-tech. And so now you have your defensive tackle and your nose guard out on the edge, rushing the edge, and then you have both of your defensive ends in double threes, okay? So they're rushing the guards. All right. Now, before I go any further, if you know anything about our football team, you know that we have two really talented dudes at defensive end. And I know, I'm going to show you some clips of them. I don't have film from us doing this at my previous stop, but we did do it. I promise you. And we didn't have near the caliber of players that we have here, but it still worked. It's still effective because it's all relative. What we're trying to do is create mismatches. Anyway, when you watch the film today, you're going to see these guys. They're talented, but they screw up. They're not perfect, and so I don't want you to walk away going, well, yeah, of course, you can do that because you have those dudes. This can be done with average high school football players, and especially if you have some guys that are quicker, faster, really good pass rusher that you can do this with them, and I think it'll be really effective as well. So anyway, let's jump into it. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll go through some film clips of this. Let's see where we at. Go. Okay, first of all, you're going to get your best rushers in one-on-one matchups with the offense's weakest blockers. Typically, especially in high school, this is your guards, right? You're going to get your defensive ends where they're, in a potentially one-on-one situation with those guards. Now, obviously, they're going to slide and they're going to do different things to help neutralize what you're doing with those guys, but it's still going to create favorable matchups, and I'll show you that in these film clips and kind of walk you through that. But another thing is you're going to put your longer, more athletic defensive ends closer to the QB. We talk about all the time the most dangerous pressure is the pressure that comes up the middle. It collapses that pocket. You get arms and body parts in that quarterback's line of vision early right now to where he can't step up at the very least. He has to throw off his back foot, rush his throw, and that's a good thing for us. And so that's another benefit of this alignment. All of your tech stunts with your tackles and your ends, those are still in play. Your players they're just switching roles. So if you're, your defensive tackle, he's usually the one, for us, he'd be slamming in a B gap and keeping contained through B gap. Well, now he's the second one coming on the rush. He's going to rub paint with the defensive end who's playing a 3-tech. And so all those twists and stunts are still in play there. Your guys just switch roles. And then your twist stunts that you have in place with your nose and tackle, those are still in place, but now they can be run with your, again, quicker, faster, more athletic defensive ends. You do have to teach them a little bit about, how to run those and how to run them properly and effectively, but it's really simple, and they should be familiar with that concept from running their stuff with, like I said, with your tech stunts anyway, so it's not going to be that much of a learning curve for them. And then finally, this is really effective also against run game, particularly zone schemes. You're going to see I have at least one clip where we run this against where a team's running some type of zone scheme and we tackle for the loss, or get a tackle for loss. You know, I wouldn't recommend this for things like you're going to see a heavy gap scheme, or you're playing, obviously, you know, you're playing a triple option team, you know, things like midline, or you're getting a lot of draws and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, this is a game plan package, and this is something you're going to do depending on what you're seeing out of the offense that week. This isn't something you're necessarily going to use every week. In fact, we didn't actually implement this with our defense here at Pleasant Grove until late in the season, really even in the playoffs. And here are our stats. So we ran this, you know, really just a handful of times. So for us here at Pleasant Grove, it's still a relatively small sample size, and there are a lot of things that we'll add on to this and a lot of ways that we will build off of this. But, you know, we're talking less than 20 reps on the season in this look. And I'm not showing you all 20 reps today, but I'll show you some. But here are our stats just when we were in this alignment. It yielded 3 sacks, resulted in a pick 6. We held offenses to -2 rushing yards in this look, and then 2.3 yards gained total when we were in this alignment. Okay, now let's talk about drawbacks. Okay, and I already kind of mentioned them, but I'll talk about those now, and then we can talk about them in our film clips. But obviously, A gap runs. Okay, because now, you know, as you're aligned, you don't necessarily have a guy you don't have a guy in the A gap, and you have a Mike linebacker who, you know, is either you're either asking him to play both A gaps, or you're going to have one of your 3 techs spike an A gap. But, you know, from the outset, you know, you don't have any A gap players right now, or you're short an A gap player. So A gap runs could be a problem, but there are some simple fixes that you can do to where that's not an issue. Screens and draws could be an issue because, you know, those defensive ends, when you put them in that alignment, that 33 alignment, they're not there to play the run. They're there to rush the passer. So, you know, obviously teams could use, you know, their aggressiveness against them and run some screens and draws there. I mentioned this already, but gap scheme stuff could hurt this, trap, midline, whams, things like that. If you're getting a heavy dose of that, you're not going to probably want to run this that week. But again, this is also situational. This is in situations where it's passing, you know, obvious passing situation, and you know, maybe you know, just obvious passing situations that you'll want to use this. The other slight drawback is you put your lesser athletes rushing an edge, and that's an issue that I'll point out in our video here that you do need to address, because now you have a nose guard and a defensive tackle who aren't used to being on the edge, rushing the edge, and that's something you definitely have to educate those kids on how to do that properly, because this can you know, you guys know this as defensive line coaches, there's nothing more frustrating than have a quarterback dead in your sights, and he scrambles out of the pocket to pick up a first down or complete a pass. And that can happen if your nose and your 3 tech don't keep contained. So we'll talk about that, and I'll show you some examples here, good and bad, of us doing that here. So let's get to some film clips here. Okay, so this is we're going to start off with just a bad example first, okay? And this is in the playoffs here, and we're going to start left to right, okay? So this would be our normal defensive tackle, our 3 tech right here, okay? So now he's playing a loose 5, all right? And we do want those guys in loose 5s, okay? Check that. I think that this is actually he was our nose this game. He played both, but in this game he was our nose. Here's our defensive tackle out here, our normal 3 tech, okay? So these guys are in loose 5s, and then you can't really see our ends, but they're in loose 3s here. Okay, so let's work from this kid over here on our left, and we'll work all the way down and talk about what the good and bad that we're seeing out of this. Okay, so first of all, look at his get off where he goes. He runs right through the middle of that tackle. Okay, so if we get pressure on this kid, he scrambles, we're in trouble. Okay, because we can't keep contained with that kind of rush right there. You guys know that is, you know, I cannot stand seeing that, because you just run right through the middle of somebody. He's got his face buried in the guy's chest. He's eye level to eye level with him. Definitely not keeping his pads down for sure. And so that's a bad rep right there. And that will, you know, if you can't get these guys to rush an edge properly, it's really difficult to run this unless these guys are just getting back there quick, and you're playing a quarterback that's not mobile. This quarterback is very mobile, very dangerous with his feet, and so we had to be on point with this, and we weren't here. So rushing right through the middle, and that's something you have to address and rep with your guys. Okay, so now let's move down here to 44. Okay, here's what we're going to see. You're going to see they're in max protection here. 2 running backs in the backfield. They have 5 guys devoted to our 3 techs here. Okay, and again, these are special dudes. I get that, but if we wanted to, now we're not talking about this today, but if we wanted to, we could. We have obviously now the capability. We could send some linebackers here, send a linebacker, and really get those guys go through untouched if we wanted, because of the attention these guys are paying to our three techs here. However, let's talk about this. Okay, you see them, they're sliding over here. The offensive line is sliding to number 40, okay, which they should be. All right. And so you have the center, you have the guard, and you have this running back all responsible for number 40. Okay. Well, what you have to make sure your guys understand, and we didn't understand this yet, is that they're both looking at the center, both of your 3 techs. And when they see that center go away, okay, so like 44, he sees the center go away. Right now, he ought to spike A gap. Okay. Because there's no help. This guy's by himself. Now, you can't see the running back's going to help, but that's still, now he's got a cross face come all the way over here to help, instead of, if when he's rushing B gap, it's a really easy block for him to make, and really easy for him to help double. But anyway, so we'd like to see 44 we would like for 44 to see that and recognize that center going away and go in A gap right now, get his hands up, and at least, get his paws there in that quarterback's line of sight. All right. You look at number 40. Okay, he makes a little jab step first inside. I like that. That's fine. But just everything's way too tall. You see him window washing with his rush there. Okay, exposing his ribs. He does get, he does beat that first guy, but pad level's way too high. Not a bad job over here by number 50. Okay, he's super raw when it comes to rushing the passer. I mean, you guys tell me what kind of pass rush move that is. Okay, I don't know. But he does at least attack an edge, and that's good. He does have contain. Okay, he's rushing that quarterback's upfield shoulder, so that's not a bad rep by him. Okay, right here, same game. Again, if we're starting over here at the left, I really like number 50's get off. He could be lower. A pretty good job applying pressure there. Okay, so now let's look at number 40. Again, the focus of the protection is geared around him. All right. And he really shouldn't be running in there towards that center. He needs to be here and stay out here. Okay. Now we could do some twists and stunts, and I could talk about this, but you could incorporate where, he sees the center at him. Now he's going to go engage him. Okay. And then let 44 come and pick him. And now he can rub off. Okay. You can definitely do that. And that's something that we could do. And we could add that here if we wanted. We hadn't gotten to that point yet. But anyway, 40, we don't want him running inside like that. He's got to stay outside and rush, put pressure on the guard to stop you. Okay. All right. So let's look at number 44. He's one-on-one. So this is what we're talking about now, because now they're not in max protect. Okay. They got one back in the backfield. Okay. So he's got a one-on-one matchup. All right. And so now this doesn't have to be, this could be a kid that you got that's maybe a tweener kid. Maybe he's kind of a, mix between an outside linebacker and a defensive end. But if he has a really quick move and he can use a speed rush, or he's a pretty savvy pass rusher, put him on this guard in a one-on-one situation and let him go rush. Okay. Now, again, you look at 45 out here. He constricts this B gap for this defense, for our defensive tackle here, because he's running right through the middle of this tackle. And so it inhibits him from getting a clean rush, because he won't get his butt out here and rush C gap. And that's a problem. Okay. We don't want, if we're going to bull rush, we don't need a bull rush right down the middle of him. That's a poor rush once again, but this did wind up being a pick 6. So it worked out for us. Okay. So here we go. This is instead of a butt view of it, this is a tight view of it. Sorry. All right, so let's start down here. I like 50's get off. He needs to bend that corner a little bit. Again, he really doesn't know what he's doing as far as rushing the passer. He's just getting off the ball, which is good. But definitely needs some polishing up. But love to see him dip that inside shoulder, run the hoop right there, and turn the corner and bend. But let's look at 40 now. All right, look at his get off. He's popping straight up. Now this guard, the way this guard pass sets. Look at that right there. He's lunging. This ought to be an easy rush, okay? We have a one-on-one situation out here. All right, look at this right here. All he's got to do, he sees that hat go down. This guy's pads are way out over his toes. Man, something quick, get in this B gap and go get you a sack right now. But he doesn't do that. He goes back into the A gap, and he's just trying to, he really doesn't have a plan here. And you can see this all goes back to eye discipline. Watch when he comes out of his stance, his eyes are back here the whole time. Okay, and so that really hurts him. But obviously, if he does what he's supposed to do, he's got a one-on-one rush here, which is what we want. Okay, now 44 does do a better job. You can see his guard lunges at him. Oh, around him right now, and gets a sack. Okay, now let's look at 59 up top. Okay, again, this will kill us. He cannot freaking bull rush. Okay, and that's on me. I should have done a better job of stressing this with these guys. Is that, man, you got to get out on an edge, rush his third, and now here I will say this: you can, to help these guys out, you can make a box call with these guys, where a box call is, they're sprinting out here to a spot. You designate where, but they sprint out here to a spot. They don't even want to contact this guy, and they're basically keeping everything boxed in. Okay, and then if the quarterback flushes to them, then they can convert that into a rush. But that keeps those guys from just running right down the middle of their tackle and losing contain. Okay, so that's another way that another thing that you can add to this to make sure that these guys are rushing an outside edge. Okay, we'll start from the bottom here, because now we got our big boy nose in. He's rushing defensive end, and they're running some kind of zone scheme. All right, and the worst thing for zone schemes is if you denting the line of scrimmage. Okay, that kills zone schemes, and when you're in this 33 alignment and you're denting those B gaps, and then you have it to where now your guys can even spike an A gap once they see that center's away from them. That's really going to disrupt zone game. And also, you got these outside guys, as long as they're able to bend and throttle down their rush, it's effective against zone scheme as well. Like we're just looking at 44 right here. Pad level's too high. Like to get more punch. Okay, you see how this 77 kid kind of loads his hands. And is late on his punch. We'd like to already be in him and get separation, get extension. Okay, but you can see the center's going with 40 here. So 44 ought to be spiking in that A gap right now, making the tackle. Pretty good job with 40 with his hands right there. We just like for his pad level to be lower, but I mean he's a pretty tall kid, so that can be difficult. But anyway, okay, here we go. Good butt view of it. All right, let's start with left to right, number 45 over here. Okay, it's hard to see, and this ends up being a run, but it was a better job of him rushing an edge. Okay, here we go. You got like a zone O scheme, guards pulling. Okay, and that's a difficult block back for that center. And now 44 is able to bend the edge. 40, I mean, is that textbook and how he plays that? No, but he's taught right there. We're rushing the passer, and it works out for him. So that's just to show you this can be effective against the run game. But I thought 74 does a pretty good job right here, staying outside, rushing an edge. He does kind of fall back in late once he recognizes it's run, but that's a good job by him. Okay. So let's look up top to our right here. Sorry. Number 50. All right. So everybody knows, like, when you're this wide, okay, this kid's got to come out. He's going to come out to you, right? So we don't need to run at him. And we teach this, and you've heard it on our podcast before, about rushing to a spot right here. And that's what he should be doing. He should be rushing to this spot and making this kid get out here and reach him. But instead, he runs right through the middle of him there. And we don't want to do that, obviously. Okay, and fortunately, we got the sack. But, this kid was about to break contain, and we were about to be in trouble right here because we don't have contain here. Okay, luckily we get a sack here. So let's move into 40. Who gets the sack? Okay. So now you do have, I don't know what the center was doing here, but you do end up getting a one-on-one situation. And that's, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that defensive end is able to get in this quarterback's face now before he's able to get the ball off. So. Again, 44, I'd like for him not to get so tangled up with 65 there with that guard. Blow that outside shoulder up and stay in that B gap. Again, 45 is running right through the middle of somebody. Not very good. Okay. All right, so a little screen action right here, and this is definitely something you'll get when you're running this and your front is aggressive. But the reason why I show this is because we get a batted ball here, and you have two long kids who are in the quarterback's face now. I'm not so sure that if they were rushing from their defensive end spot, if they would have been able to get that ball down or get that ball batted down. We knew sacks were going to be hard to come by against this team because they were a catch and throw, and so we really liked playing this alignment because we thought at least if we're not able to get a sack, we can at least affect the quarterback by getting in his face now and applying pressure up the middle, and that's what happens here. But you can see, okay, all right, so they're sliding here. He's stepping up here. So now you have a one-on-one matchup with this guy, okay? So, if you have two guys that are, one of them's better than the other one, that's fine, okay? So understand that the attention is going to go to your better kid. So that means that kid that's maybe not quite as good, he's going to get a lot of the one-on-one matchups. But still, there's some twists and stuff that you can do to help maximize that. To help free this guy up. If we wanted right now, we're looking at this center. We see his face mask at us. He could slam into here. This guy comes and picks him, rubs this guy off, and now he's free. Okay, so this was a way we did it just in our 3-down front. So we're now, instead of having 4 guys down, now you just put your defensive end in at nose and let him rush the center. So it's a tough assignment for the center, rushing a kid like that and just rushing a defensive end in general. I think and I don't remember what we told this kid, probably not a whole lot, don't want to overcoach some of these guys, but if you had a kid, you could tell him to pick, what I always tell them is to rush the side where their hand is down. So right here, I would tell this kid to go rush his left side here. But again, let them be football players. But I thought it was a pretty good rush by number 44 up top, attacking this kid's hands and sort of being relentless there. And that's a good job of keeping contained. Okay. So that's just a few examples of this 33 alignment. Let me see if I have anything else up here that I wanted to show you about this. I think that was it. But yeah, that was the that's basically it in a nutshell. And again, that's just scratching the surface. There's so much that you can do within that you can build on that. And that's why I like it, because we put it in and we didn't have to change any of our terminology. We didn't have to change any of our stunts. We did have to teach our kids different roles and responsibilities, especially those inside guys. But it's something that you can get that taught up, coached up and taught up pretty easily. And it can be really, really effective for you. And just a nice change up that you can do without switching personnel, without having to send pressure. You can still, drop everybody into coverage if you need to. And so that's another benefit of it. So just a reminder, we are a weekly podcast. We got new episodes being released every Monday, and you can check those out wherever you hear your podcast. We'll be back next week with a regularly scheduled podcast with a guest. We're going to be talking to a former defensive line coach who is now a head coach at the Division II level, and just kind of talk about his ascension from defensive line coach to now head coach. And we're also going to be getting into some stopping the run stuff, and that's going to be really good. So excited about that. So if you haven't already subscribed to our podcast, Do that now. If you've never given us a review and you like what you're hearing, man, that helps us out so much when you give us a review, and also give us a 5-star rating to help spread the word about this podcast. You can follow our show on Twitter at KYPD Podcast. You can follow my personal account at Coach Taylor 53. And of course, you can always send us an email, and that email there is on the screen.